to you, the museum's special guest this year. You know her better as Caroline Ma Ingalls. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, it's Karen Grossley.
Hi, so good to be here with you. So great, really. How nice to see all these kids down here too. Well, can I get this out of here? That's a little more casual. Thanks. That's great, thank you. Oh, so thank you so much for coming. I'm so happy to see all of you. You know, in my daily life, the people never think anything about Little House on the Prairie. And for me, it's so wonderful to come out and meet people to whom the show meant a lot. So thank you. So I want to tell you a little bit about me and where I come from and how I happened to become the mother on Little House on the Prairie. When I was a little girl growing up in Ventura, California, right by the Pacific Ocean, we had a very nice library, and my mother took me there to get my library card when I could just print my name. And so I started reading pretty early, and the kind of books that I liked were exactly like the Little House books. But at that time, I think they must have been out of print because I never came across them all the years at the library. And I was always reading things, you know, like Clara Barton's Student Nurse and Little Women. And I'm sure I would have eaten them up if I had found them. I loved school. I loved performing in plays at church and at school and singing, and every opportunity to get up and do stuff like that, I would grab it. And when I went off to college, a friend of mine, I was trying very hard to be a good student, and at this time I was at University of California at Berkeley. And I was really, really trying to stay away from plays because they take so much time. And to be the student that I had never been in high school. And so I just would see these signs for auditions and I would say, oh, I'm not going there, I'm not going there. And then a friend of mine called me up and read a scene from a play called Look Back in Anger. It was a brand new play from England and the angry young men of the time. And that play so moved me, the next day I was at the auditions. So Stacy Keach, who was our campus star, saw me come in the room and he said, come on, we'll go down the hall, we'll practice. And we did that, and then I got that part, and I just knew I was home. I was on the stage, I was at technical rehearsals, we were waiting for the light cues, and I just knew this is where I'm comfortable. So it took me a little while longer to admit that that was what I had to do. The following summer, I went to Pasadena Playhouse. Charlotte Stewart, who played Miss Beadle, she went to Pasadena Playhouse. That was where she studied. And I was just there for a 6-week summer course. And at the end of that course, I was impassioned. I knew this is what I have to do with my life. And so I called my parents and I said, I have to drop out of school. I have to go to San Francisco and join the theater. And my mother said, now, Karen, you know we have these crises. Let's talk about it when you get home. No, Mother, you don't understand. I know what I want to do.
Yeah.
Now, Karen. She tried to settle me down. we'll talk about it later. I said, but Mother, Daddy, you always said all you wanted was for us to be happy. Now I'm happy. So the die was cast. I did leave school. I went to San Francisco. I joined a marvelous theater company called the Actors Workshop. I became an apprentice there. And the day that I made the phone call to find out if I could become part of their theater, this very cultured voice answered the phone. San Francisco Actors Workshop. And I said, hello, my name is Karen Grassley, and I'm wondering how I could become part of your theater. He said, well, we are starting an apprentice program, and we are going to have classes in the morning, and you will work in the afternoons and evenings on the shows. Does that interest you? Well, my heart was just pounding. That sounds perfect. He said, well, you would have to be available to us 24 hours a day. And I said, 24 hours a week? No, you would belong to us. And he wasn't kidding, you know. So at that point, I realized I would not be able to work and do this program. So I called my parents and I said, you know, could you help me? This is a whole year's worth of support I would need. And they went for it. So I joined that company and became part of the theater, and I realized within a month or two, these people were so smart and so well educated, and I didn't know anything they were talking about, and that after that year I would have to go back to Cal and finish my education, which I did. And then I got a Fulbright and went to study at London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art in England, because I wanted to be able to perform many kinds of characters in all different kinds of plays. That was my ideal. And I proceeded to have a career in the theater. In fact, I had been back to England and a member of a Shakespeare company there the year before I went on to Little House. And what happened was, we were a group of American actors, and we were working with English directors and teachers and choreographers, and we had a Ford grant, so we weren't actually on salary, we were on more of a stipend, and I spent all of my savings supplementing that small income to get through that year. Then I came back to the States and I left that company, and I got a phone call from an old friend who said, I'm going to make an independent movie, and I want you to be the female star. And I was like, oh, I get to work again. Okay. So I packed up my bags and I got tranquilizers for my little dog, and my boyfriend and I went to the airport, and I said, hello, you have a ticket for me, blah, blah, blah. And they said, no, we don't have a ticket for you. And I thought, well, this is just a mistake. So my boyfriend has his ticket, and my dog is drugged. And I am broke. And I thought, well, I gotta go to California. That's all there is to it. So I'm afraid I wrote a bad check. Don't ever do this. I wrote a bad check for my ticket and got on the plane and went to California to be in the movies.
Wow.
And when I first got there, it seemed like everything was going to work out, but then I stopped hearing from the guy who was going to direct the film, and I called up, and his girlfriend said, don't call us. And I was like, don't call you? I've come all the way out from New York. So there I was broke, I was in California, what was I going to do? I thought I'll have to go back to school. I'm now in my 30s. I'm like, I still am not making a decent living. Maybe I wasn't meant to have this career. I must have made a mistake. I'll go back. I'll become a psychologist. But how am I going to go back? How am I going to pay for school? Well, I'll have to do some television. I knew that my friends were making good money doing television, and so I thought that'll be what to do. I'll need some new photos, and my mom loaned me some money so I could get new photos. And I had a little payment book to pay her back at 5%. And my folks helped us a lot to get a place and figure it out. So I hadn't been there too long. I was going to teach voice lessons to pay the rent. And I got a call from the agent based on these new photos. Oh, they're doing a new series. It's a pilot called Little House on the Prairie. And it's going to be directed by Michael Landon, you know, from Bonanza. Well, I was so out of touch with popular culture that I said, well, which one of the brothers was he? So my agent explained to me, you know, patiently who he was. And one of the most famous guys in the world, right? The heartthrob of all the women in America. And I'm like, who? So I went over to the studio and I met Michael and Ed Friendly, who had brought the project to him. And we had a nice conversation, kind of like what we're having now, you know, where I told them a little bit about my experiences in New York and my Broadway debut that was going to be such a smash hit that closed in 5 days. And yeah, we had a few laughs over these events of my life. And so I left there, and on my way back from there, I thought, uh-oh, I told them I'm a loser. And then I thought, oh, well, you know what? I told them the truth, and if they don't want me, it's not meant to be. And that's such a courageous thing, I think, to think when you're flat broke. Before I got home, the agent was already calling, say they want you to go back over there and pick up the scene so you can read tomorrow. You know, in those days, we didn't have any fax machines. We didn't have any, I'll attach it to an email. You know, you had to drive to the studio, pick up the scene, drive back. So I was happy to do that. And the next day I went in to read. And the way it was I sat on a couch in the office, and Mike got right down here on the floor, right beside me. And he was looking at me so closely. You know, I was trying to contain my nerves. And we read a couple of scenes. And there we are, we read the scenes, it goes good, and then we read the next scene, and he leapt off the floor like that. I'm telling you, he sprung like a jack-in-the-box, and he said, send her to the wardrobe. And I thought, oh my God, just like that, I got the part? So Ed Friendly said to him, he said, Mike, excuse me, just a minute. Karen, would you excuse us for a moment? And I thought, uh-oh. He didn't like it, you know. So I went in the other room, and I waited. Well, it turned out that you had to have network approval when you were casting someone that they'd never heard of. And they had never heard of me, I can tell you that. So Mike set up a special closed-circuit TV audition where I would go to the studio and they would have like an interview for the executives in New York, and they would play that for them in their offices. And so I was so nervous. I was just so nervous, I can't even tell you. and Mike was really, really great. He had the hair person, he had the makeup person, he had the cinematographer so that I would look my best. He really wanted this to work out. And he said to me, you know, rather than doing a scene, because it will look so silly if we don't have a set, you know, and we're dressed up like pioneers, it will look ridiculous. So let's just have a conversation on this set over here. It was some soap opera set, you know, a little living room. So we sat over there and had a conversation, and then that was it. Okay, now back home. And by the time I got home, they had given their approval. Yeah, it was great. I was so thrilled because I thought I had to leave show business, and now I got to stay. And they were thrilled because this was the day after Christmas, and they were supposed to start shooting the 5th of January. So they had 10 days before they started shooting, and they still didn't have the mother. They had the kids, they had Mr. Edwards, but they did not have Ma. So, you know, that was timing. So that was how I came to be on Little House on the Prairie.